smear campaigns, they breed hate.
Oh, I agree.
Hate turns into rage. Rage turns into violence.
You're going to get ticked off. I don't really care.
It is bad, and it is tyrannical, and I don't want that to happen. Welcome to the Young Patriots. I'm your host, Devin Romero. We're with Aidan MacArthur, our co-host, and we are with our guest, David George.
Hello.
Yeah. So, David, go ahead and just introduce yourself real briefly. Where are you from, and how did you end up where you are?
Yeah, so my name's David George. I'm from Idaho Falls. Born and raised. I've kind of stuck around. Mm-hmm. I did some sales ventures in like Texas and California, and then I served my mission in 2016 in Tempe, Arizona.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I kind of like the mountains here a lot, so Idaho's a beautiful place.
You like the cold, or is the heat better?
It doesn't bother me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm just unaware.
Yeah, I can't do the heat, so I could never live in Arizona.
It was hot in Arizona, but it wouldn't burn you. The elevation here, I get sunburned in 5 minutes in the sun.
Oh.
And in Arizona, I could be in the sun for like an hour and I wouldn't even get sunburned.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
This is a desert.
As a redhead, I get burned when I dream of the moon. So
yeah. George Washington was a redhead.
Shout out. Hey,
yeah, dude.
Give me some luck, dude.
His white hair's a wig. He had a red ponytail.
I think we talked about this already.
Yeah, you probably did.
Episode 4.
And then I went like this, and then all the cameras broke because of how white my arm was.
Right.
And my bicep didn't fit in the frame. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. Nice.
I don't remember that. Okay, well, we'll move on. Anyway, but we're going to start talking about, as we were discussing earlier, religious freedom, and we'll also start talking about the Constitution. I think both those things are in great peril right now, so it's very apt timing. So what's been some of your experiences with those topics, and what are some points you want to make tonight?
Well, I guess I think they're all kind of interconnected. I think they're all pretty important things. As far as religious liberty goes, I feel like the intersection of religious liberty with our lives is kind of universal, where everyone has experience with it. It affects your daily life. Knowing about it, its impact can be really important, and I think that we sometimes misunderstand it. But yeah.
What are some ways that we misunderstand it?
Well, I mean, so just to kind of describe it. So in 2016, when I was serving my mission, the church had actually published a portion of their website called religious freedom. So you would go to the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints.com.org, and there was a tab, like an entire section devoted to religious liberty. Mm-hmm. And so they had started putting all these materials. They had started posting all these talks, and like there was a link to different talks that had been given by general authorities that they were recommending to read. And it was like overwhelming. Like you couldn't get to the bottom of it. Like how many different talks general authorities have given on it. And so like I had read a few. I thought it was really important. Another part of the website was videos that they had made. And so like there was an introduction from D. Todd Christofferson, and he was like sitting in a lounge in a chair, and he's like, religious liberty is one of the greatest issues of our time. Yep. And our members need to be at the forefront of this. We've produced these materials to arm you, like basically in so many words. Yeah. And so I had watched some of the materials. There was one video, and it was like it was a dramatization, and it showed parents going and speaking to a teacher about the issue of like praying in school. So like the pretext of it was their child had been praying in class and had been told not to do that by the teacher. And so the parents go in, and it shows them asserting their rights. It shows them like mentioning things, like mentioning rights and like constitutional principles, and saying, you can't tell our kid not to do this. Yep. And so it was obviously designed to be like tactful. And it was just showing people like this is an issue that you could encounter in our society. So be prepared. And
people are encountering it. It's not even a what if. It is a thing that has occurred.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of
and it could occur to all of us. Yeah. Yeah. And then so there was another video, which I thought was pretty balanced. And so there had been a person, he was in a workplace, and like he had a picture of Christ in his cubicle, and people would leave like insults and like mean things. And so like, and he was upset about it. And like, he's at the water cooler, and he mentions to someone, the church is great. Like you should join the church. Your life will be better in like all aspects. And then it shows the supervisor calling him in. And so it's kind of a reversal of like the positions. And she explains to him, hey, like you're a supervisor, you have a position in this company. And if you tell people their life is going to improve, if you tell employees that work here, their life is going to improve if they join the church, they can interpret that as you offering promotions or like offering rewards for joining the church because you're a supervisor. So don't do that. Keep the picture of Christ in your cubicle. We'll tell them to stop making fun of you. We'll tell them to stop like insulting you for that. Be careful though. Like stay in your lane.
Wow. And not what he was intending, but it's a
exactly
misunderstanding of an invitation.
Well,
there.
Exactly. I think it's a mix of genuine misunderstanding and people that are just out to get us.
Oh, for sure.
And that's so silly. Yeah. Is the word that I will use to describe it.
So what I'm going to summarize what you just said as it being the misunderstanding takes place where people assume you can't talk about A or B in a certain context. I get that all the time. Yeah. We're at church. You can't talk about politics.
Yeah.
Excuse me? Have you read the Book of Mormon? Have you read the Bible? I mean, they're pretty political books. That's kind of why all the tyrants outcast those books before any other. I mean, specifically the Bible.
Didn't Dallin H. Oaks talk about the Constitution in a talk in General Conference?
In 2 General Conferences in a row. It was a talk about the Constitution. Yes.
I think what they mean when they say don't talk about politics in church is like don't argue about it. Don't, but you can talk with your neighbor about things going on in the world.
Practically, people aren't referring to that. That's what it ought to be. It ought to be, listen, let's not get into contentious fights about I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat kind of concept. I'm not a Republican. That's just
I am.
That's just an example. But I'm saying let's not get into that type of a political discussion. But we absolutely need to be having civil conversation about what our government is doing, about what it needs to be doing, about what our culture is like. Yeah. Is it any good for us to go to church and learn about all these issues about times far gone in the Bible, in the Book of Mormon, without applying those same lessons to our day and age? Yeah. Do we really
They're pointless.
Do we really get any benefit from it? That's literally the invitation the Lord gives us. Don't just read the scriptures, study them. What's part of studying? It's figuring out how it's similar to our day and age. The whole point of the scriptures is a warning. It's a roadmap and a guide. History's been here before, and it's not the last time. It's going to be at this crossroad of evil and good. So we better arm ourselves with the sword of truth and know how we can discern between evil and righteousness and truth and lie. So I love that summary or that point that you're making, that we need to understand what those true bounds are. And if you have someone in a civil sense, in government or something, is trying to say you can't pray here, you can't do A or B here. If you know what your rights are and you know where you actually stand on the issue, you can fight back and say, I get to do this. You can arrest me if you want to, but I have a right, and this will be seen in court. This will, if you arrest me, it's crazy in our courts. It has the 10 Commandments in a lot of them. It references the law of Moses. It's what our nation is based on. Yeah. But people are constantly trying to write that out of our history.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was thinking about this today I'll talk about this in a second. It has to do with people of the Islam religion coming in and trying to change things. Our country, 100% founded on Christianity. We're a Christian nation, and we allow other beliefs to reside within our nation because we're a nation of freedom and security. Yep. That doesn't mean you get to overthrow what we already have. Yeah. We can look at every other country that's been overthrown, and it just turns to crap. So what kind of a moron would try and overthrow what we have established, and it's really, really good? Right. And, we have people of the Islam religion coming in and getting elected into office, whatever that idiot chick's name is.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah, that guy too. He's a moron Mamdani. And, we're shooting ourselves in the foot like that. We're allowing these people to come in and make changes, drastic changes. Change is good, but drastic change is detrimental to our society. People want socialism. People want Christianity out of the picture. And it's just going to tank us in the end. We're already being tanked from within our own nation, and we need to recognize it and fix it. And like you were saying, those of us who are Christians, not just members of the church, but those of us who have these Christian values need to stand up and do something about it.
Conservatives actually need to take action for once instead of just saying, I'll provide and protect for my own family, and that will be enough. It is not enough. I'm calling all Christians and conservatives to actually be a voice. Don't do anything violent, but stand up and stop falling by the wayside and trampled underfoot by the people that are trying to take our rights away. People are going to hear what you just said and call that Islamophobia. It's not Islamophobia, and here's why. There's a difference between Islam and political Islam. One is a religion. The other is a tyranny, a political movement that masquerades as a religion. And you have to know the difference. There are people that are peaceful, practicing Muslims that they say their prayers and they eat a certain way and they live a certain way according to the principles of Islam.
I said Islam religion, did I? Was that the right
I don't
term to
remember.
use?
I don't remember. I'm just going to
talking
clarify
about
for the audience.
Yeah.
But there's another sect where people are using the language and hijacking it for their own political gain. And this should not shock anyone. It's not the first time it's happened. It's happened with Christianity. It's happened with other religions. It's happened in so many different nations. They hijack a religion and the language that's contained within it and a community that's built into it to insert themselves as a savior and insert them as the solution and then become a tyrant or an all-powerful leader of some other kind. And so that's what's going on right now is we are having a literal invasion of people that subscribe to political Islam. If you're just a Muslim that is practicing your faith and you go to a mosque, I don't care about any of that. I'm fine with that. If you believe in Western values and you believe in our law of the land, you're welcome here. If you are trying to change our country into a country like what yours is at home, then you are not welcome here as a person of political Islam following. You are not welcome here. And that's a crazy thing to have to say that these days. We used to understand that as Americans. If you do not subscribe to American beliefs and values, you're not welcome here. And I'm clarifying this because I want to be very clear that we're not saying you can't be here if you're a member of Islam, because that would be religious discrimination. And we're just talking
That's
about
what I was
religious
trying to
freedom.
point at is the people that come in here and try and change stuff. That's what I meant. If I said religion, I'm talking about the people who are tyrants and stuff. I don't care what religion you really are.
It's the political activist groups, like there's CARE and there's people talk about AIPAC with Israel. There's an Arabic version of AIPAC, and many of them that no one knows about, but they're doing the same things that AIPAC is doing, but for Arabic countries.
Well, so I kind of wonder. I feel like so if we give a label of like un-American to Islam and like any of their activities and stuff, it's kind of a two-edged sword. And I think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has really been on the receiving end of that. There was a time when Tom Hanks had made a public statement and he said, Mormonism, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is completely un-American. It's totally un-American. And so the way that people view us, especially like evangelical Christians and like the Christian community, is that we fit into that category. Typically the way that we view Islam is the way that they view us. And so it is kind of a slippery slope. And
that's why we're trying to clarify that. We're not saying the religion.
Yeah.
Right.
We're saying that there are people that are, that's why I said political Islam. Some people call it Islamic extremism.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the political faction that is hijacking. It would be as if someone came into our church and then we're using members of the church just because, oh, look, I'm a Latter-day Saint, vote for me. But they're only using it for political force. They're not truly members of that faith. Yeah. They're on paper, they're members of it potentially. Yeah. But what their actions dictate is that they are going against those principles and they are trying to, it would be like that same person trying to prevent other Christians from practicing their beliefs and trying to rewrite the laws to favor their group of people. That's what's happening right now in Texas.
To a large degree, I think that one aspect of religious liberty really does cover that. Like the Church of Jesus Christ has really put its foot down when it comes to like choosing our membership, the standards for our membership, leaders in the church. Like there's been opposition with discrimination laws that would say that if we hired people in the church that we couldn't hold them to the standard of a temple recommend. And so that includes a belief in the prophet Joseph Smith. It includes a belief in the Heavenly Father and in the Savior, but it's also this very particular, very unique organizational feature that we've put our foot down and we say we can choose who's a member of our church and who isn't, who we excommunicate and who we baptize.
Right. Because that helps you to eliminate that false association of that type of political person trying to hijack a religion.
Yeah. And I think part of it comes down to, so another aspect of religious liberty, which I mean, there's so many different applications of it. There's like the intersection of it in our personal life. There's where it exists in laws. There's the programs of the church, the policies of the church. And then there's also this idea of like a free market of religious freedom. Mm-hmm. And so if we truly believe that everyone should be able to like worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience, if they have money, if they have a powerful church, if they're politically active or they're politically influential in society or in law in all these different ways, I feel like we should be willing to contend. And I think that so if we did away with religious liberty and we muzzled the ability of our church to speak, so that there was a clear line between religion and between doctrine and then between like politics, so we couldn't talk about anything with politics, it makes it stilted. It turns religion into something that it's not. And I think that like, so in the long run, I think that we should be willing to do that. It's like Walmart, Kmart, and Shopko. So if your religion does better, if your religion provides a better service, if it's superior, if it's more well-formed, if it's more well executed, it's kind of like the difference between Walmart and Kmart. So Kmart goes out of business, Walmart stays in business.
Yes.
So if our church genuinely has merit and we exist within a free market, we should be able to attract members. We should be able to retain members. All the policies, all the procedures of our church should have such value and merit that we prosper and that we thrive.
There is an extent to that, though. This is something that a lot of people don't know. So people will say, when we're talking about Islam, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I'm saying when we're talking about Islam, there are, for those people that are taking it to the extremes and that are doing things that falls under the political Islam or terrorist category, not the active, just standard faithful member of that religion. When they're doing those types of things, you're talking about people that are injuring other individuals, that are killing people, saying that they're doing it in the name of their God. But like, there's all these different problems. That is where the buck stops when it comes to religious liberty. You have religious liberty until you are infringing upon the rights of another individual.
Yeah. And so I don't know how interesting this would be, but so there was a time that I was like, I wanted to know what religious liberty was. Mm-hmm. I wanted to like to be an expert in it, so I could help with what D. Todd Christofferson said, to be a champion for it. And so I thought about the term a lot, and I just realized that like when I thought about the term like religious liberty, like I didn't know what it meant. Like I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And it was like the more time that you spend with a word like that, when it becomes foreign in your own mouth, like I was kind of like, what am I talking about when I say this? So that like there had been a situation, and I had been working at a place, and there was another person from BYU Idaho, and so as we were working, like digging holes, we would have conversations, and it was about the church, or it was about Joseph Smith, or it was about all these different things. And so our supervisor wasn't a member of the church, and he would walk behind us and kind of glare at us and be like, you need to be digging. And we're like, we are digging, and we're also talking. And so they had approached me, and they said, listen, we're not paying you to talk about religion all day. Like, stop that. And so I remember like I was at home, and like I had to go to work the next day, and I made the decision. I said, there's no possible way that I'm going to voluntarily like muzzle my own religious freedom. If I want to talk about the church, I'm going to talk about the church.
For sure. And
so the next day I went, we had the same type of conversation, and the supervisor had walked by, and he was like, and then they fired me that night, like through a message. That. Yeah. Yep. And so it was a decision that I had made, but I suffered for it because I needed that job. Right. And yet in the long run, I made the right decision for myself, the right decision for my soul. And I feel like it put me in better places. And the truth of it was, a lot of companies, if you're a company of like 50 or less, you're not bound by like discrimination laws. You're not bound by federal law. So you can pick and choose people who are a part of your company.
Well, not only that, but in that circumstance, it's not because you were a member that they fired you. It's because you were having conversations that they deemed not fit for the workplace. So they're still, even if they were bound by non-discrimination laws, they're still allowed that leverage, that leeway.
Yeah, exactly. So it comes down to like a culture fit, where like you want your team to be getting along well. If someone works there and they don't get along, if they don't fit into the culture, like you have the discretion to fire that person.
And why would you want to work in a facility that doesn't replicate or mirror to some degree your values?
Yeah, it's true. It kind of went both ways. And so it wasn't like I was going to like get a lawsuit together and like, but it was just the idea like there's a cost to religious liberty. There's a cost to religious freedom.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so more particularly, I think that, so if you look at different political campaigns, like Donald Trump ran on Christianity. Like there were times that he would like reference the Bible or like
2 Corinthians.
Yeah. So like he when he gives speeches, even the most like recent Christmas speech that he gave, he's reading through this speech and he's like, Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the Savior of the world.
Which I really
like,
appreciate that.
I mean, I did appreciate that, but you can also see how he stumbled through it a little bit. He's like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a passionate like expression. And so, but it's part of his campaign. Like looking at Donald Trump, we wanted a president, right? Who was a Christian, who was going to support these things, who's going to be open about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of within the same vein of like Charlie Kirk, where it's like people, they're exercising their religious freedom. They want to mention Christ. They want these things to be a part of the public sphere.
For sure.
And it's happening.
For sure.
And so I kind of look at us and I say, okay, so we have the message of the Bible, right, as Mormons. And yet, if you were to run a campaign, if you were to run for any office, and you say, I'm going to include the principles of government from the Book of Mormon, I'm going to mention these things, right? Because it's a source of strength. It builds upon the Bible. It strengthens it. It gives clarity to it. The idea of like secret combinations, like all the different lessons that we've learned from the Book of Mormon. We're to some degree, we permit social pressure to eliminate that from our conversation. And so like my belief, I have a strong belief that if you were to run a campaign and you were to use the Book of Mormon and to use the messaging from it or the principles from it, you could do that. You could do that.
Without saying that it's from the Book of Mormon.
Well, even if you did. And so I think what the question comes down to is, are you going to win?
Right.
And so there's like political scientists and stuff, and you look at like different messaging and you can kind of predict, okay, the populace, if you run a campaign and this is your messaging and you hit home on this point and you campaign on these promises, you'll probably get elected. And so if you were to include like a Mormon message in it, like obviously like the results, the statistical results would be, you're probably not going to win.
Yeah.
But you could make that choice. You could still do that.
There's been many people that have done it. I mean, Joseph Smith ran for president back in like, I think it would have been
late 30s.
It would have been
early
like
40s.
Yeah, it would have been like the 10th president, the 8th president, somewhere in there.
I think instead of him being president, he was martyred. Obviously, I think Abraham Lincoln was the president that election year.
No, Abraham Lincoln was during like the 50s and 60s, so it was after Joseph Smith.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit after.
Was he? Okay.
I can't remember who it was. It might have been like John Adams' son.
John Quincy.
Yeah, John Quincy Adams.
Yep.
So I think it was like 6th, 7th, 8th in that range.
Yeah. But so like honestly, like the way that I look at it, I feel like we permit these social pressures to limit us.
I agree.
We don't have to do that. We're not testing and we're not proving, we're not developing the principles that we have in our possession in the public sphere in any way, because we're afraid to lose. We're afraid to be told that we're wrong. We're afraid of the persecution. We're afraid of the pushback. And I think that we like the idea of like popularizing it on a national level. I mean, it's not clear to me that would like win an election immediately.
No, yeah.
But I do have confidence in the Book of Mormon. I do have confidence in its message. I do have confidence in the things that it talks about, and I think it's a lifeline that we need. So if we were to contrast that with Christianity as we see it, are things getting better? Like is our country moving in the direction that we need it to be moving in? And I think in a lot of ways, like with all the support that Trump has lost, we're just seeing. It's not even like my perspective or my opinion, but it's people who previously supported him are now saying he's not what we thought he was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and obviously, I mean, this isn't just like a religious liberty issue. I think that it actually ties into partisanship quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And yet, I mean, just so for the membership of the church or for people who do have the Book of Mormon in their possession, how do we use that? What should it be used for? Are we supposed to read it and then just keep it to ourselves and then kind of look at the world and then omit everything that we could learn from it? And I think that we need to have like a little bit more courage in using it in the popular sphere, because we don't know in the long term of things. Like statistically, maybe it would fail in the short term, but in the long term, I feel like there's a power to it. There's a depth to the book. There's a reason why it was given.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, and if half the people that heard about the Book of Mormon actually read, and just for themselves, there's so much false stuff out there about it, and if they read it for themselves and thought about, is this Christian? Yeah. Are these Christian principles, or is this satanic? Because that's what a lot of people think that our religion is, that aren't part of our faith. They think it's a satanic cult, which is just because of media popularity.
That's hilarious.
It's wild.
So that's why people are scared. And so the moment you have someone run for president, like, I mean, Mitt Romney, why did he not win? A big chunk of it is because there were a lot of Christian voters that didn't vote for him.
That's exactly right.
Half the members of the church you
Exactly
vote from.
right.
The guy's a rhino and he's
Well,
silly pants. But
Yeah, I'm not saying that people should have voted for him just because he was a member of our
I know people that
church.
did.
Yes, and I
And
think
they're
that's
dumb.
very blind. I think it's very blind. Just because he's a member of my church, yeah, I'll sign my name on the
I hope
dotted
the
line.
people I'm thinking of are watching this. I don't think they are though.
But the point is, that's happened before, and that's exactly what happens. Is when you run with the knowledge that that person is a member of our church, a Latter-day Saint, there are Christians that are not of our sect, of our faith, and they will just refuse to vote for that person. They just won't vote.
We just saw that BS in Idaho Falls. Our friend Jeff was running for mayor. He's Christian. What is he? Evangelical or Protestant or something? Do you know what denomination?
I don't.
No, but he's Christian. Has Christian values. Has family values. Conservative leaning values. And the person who ended up
It was
getting
like
elected,
the opposite.
yeah. I guess Idaho Falls is fairly members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints saturated, and the person who won was a member of the church. And
But yeah,
She was also a city council person, though.
so
she
she
has
is
the
she is more
notoriety.
well known and stuff. But I mean, we knocked doors there. I met lots of people that were like, oh yeah, well, I've known her. She's a member. She's this, that. Totally based off of merits that don't matter at all. People vote because they see an R next to the name, or they vote because they, babysat them as they were growing up. It's just these stupid reasons to support somebody. No one's really looking at the information that's out there, like we're talking about with the Book of Mormon. No one's actually reading the Book of Mormon. They're reading things that are more easily accessible. You see what I'm trying to get at?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's poisoning America.
Yeah.
Partisanship.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I support what you're talking about, where you're saying, I mean, we believe these things to be true, so why not be completely forthcoming about it and just saying, I think this would make our country a lot better if we understood the evils of secret combinations. I mean, we know it's going on. We absolutely know there are probably several secret combinations that, for those that don't know, it's basically just people that they agree to hide their crime at any cost. They just agree to secrecy. And there's got to be lots of them, not only in Washington, but in corporations, in gangs, in all these different avenues. And they're working together sometimes and sometimes working separately to benefit themselves. And right now, their benefit comes at the expense of our country's freedoms and our citizens' liberties, one of which is religious liberty. Yeah. So, but we're in a spiritual battle against these individuals, really against the powers of the other world that are guiding them to do evil. And so we're trying to stop people from making this country detached from reality and from God's rights. Yeah, because ultimately he's the author of these rights, and so if we lose those rights, like we will have to pay for having failed to defend those. Yeah, and if we didn't do anything like what you're talking about, we need to stand up and say something. Enough of us just standing by the wayside and not doing anything. We need to actually stand up, and we've finished a prayer. Stand up and take action.
So there was an interview that Mitt Romney did when he was campaigning for president, and he was talking to a radio show host, and the radio show host had wanted to ask him a question about like the New Jerusalem and Zion, and they thought it was just a strange idea. He's like, you think that New Jerusalem's going to be built in America? Like, what is that? So they went to a commercial break, and Mitt Romney like takes off his headphones, and he was like, you know damn well that I am not running on that platform. I am not running on Mormonism. You want to ask me about this? Fine. And she's like, yeah, you think there's going to be Jerusalem and then New Jerusalem's going to be here in Jackson County, Missouri? And he was like, hold on. You want to answer this question? Let's suppose for a moment that I, as a member of my own church, know more about my religion than you do. And he's like, well, this is what I read and this is what it says. And he was like, listen, you want the answer? It's going to be in Jerusalem. The throne of the Lord will be in Jerusalem. And then from Zion comes forth the law, and then he left. He was so upset about it because his campaign he wasn't running on Mormonism, and because it was inadvisable. it wasn't like an easily digestible message for the populace. And so, and he tried to steer his campaign in a way that was away from that. And so I think that he had a lot of merit as a candidate, I think. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think that there was a lot of things that, like his power in foreign affairs, his power as an executive was probably a greater strength than like his domestic policy, which kind of got him into trouble. But again, I think that what we saw during the time was like he would give press conferences, and the backdrop would be the Salt Lake Temple. And so it was all eyes on Mormonism. So what his campaign did was it thrust it into the spotlight, where people were saying, here's a competent individual. Here's Mitt Romney running for president. He's the front runner. Here's his ideas. Here he is debating Obama. And I think that, like, to a large degree, it was our country like made the wrong choice, where we were able to see a lot of these things. Whether or not Mitt Romney's the best example of the church or not is,
Oh yeah.
The point.
No, I think Mitt Romney. There's much to be wanted. There's much to want if we have him as the president from 2008 to 2016. But yes,
I think it would have been great. I think that we don't even know what would have happened.
I think it would have been a major upgrade compared to Obama. Yeah. And there's going to be people that their jaws drop when I say that. Obama was a terrible president.
That was dog water.
Terrible. The only you get worse when you go to Joe Biden, sure, but
Kamala Harris was the worst.
Hyena.
Well, she wasn't president though.
Or Kamala
she
Harris,
wasn't president, so
the worst candidates.
Yeah, for sure. One of the most distasteful candidates. That's why they didn't win.
Yeah.
But the only reason Obama won was because he was black. That's DEI for you. It was people saying, "I want a black president," and do you want to know? That's not me saying that. I'm not racist. Okay, people are gonna call me racist, and I really don't care. But the thing is, you listen to people after the 2008 election and ask them, who did you vote for? And they're like, Obama. Why did you vote for him? Well, because he's black, and I think it'd be awesome for us to have the first black president. That is a terrible reason to elect a person. And frankly, that's what elections have been for the last 50 to 100 years, is what does the person look like? I mean, that's the reason JFK got elected, everyone says, is because he was just a, handsome guy, apparently. And so there's a lot of civic popularity behind him because of those reasons. That's a terrible reason to elect someone. Now, JFK was actually a good president.
Yeah.
But yeah, Obama, I mean, there's so many things that you can critique about his policies. I'm not going to say everything he did was terrible. At least he was a competent president. I just completely disagree with the policies.
Quick little 60-second side note on that. That's how I know how America should know that Biden's election was complete crap, because he got more votes than Obama. There's no way that this old white dude is going to get more votes than the first black president. That is absolute BS.
Well, it was by like 5 million or something like that.
By an
Maybe it was
insane
50 million. I can't remember. It was something.
It was by an insane
It was a
amount.
large metric.
Crazy. That doesn't happen. It's voter fraud. Trump won 3 elections, and figured I'd just use that to rage bait whoever's watching this.
It's not just rage bait. I mean,
it's facts, but it's you're gonna get ticked off. I don't really care. Oh.
I appreciate that. It's so why are people being so afraid to just say it like it is and say, listen, I know people aren't going to like this, but I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You call us Mormon, but we believe in Christ just like you do. We just have different beliefs about it. You have that conversation. I mean, some people will say it's not politically pertinent. It's not appropriate. It's like bringing up God in church and not in church and government functions in school. Before long, that will be the contention. Like, how dare you mention God in church?
Yeah.
But
my country was founded on Christianity. That's why.
But why do people shy away from that, specifically in our religion? And what can we do differently?
I have something to say too, but I want to hear you first.
Well, I think a lot of that goes into a conversation about partisanship.
Which define that for people. Not everyone will know what that means.
The two-party system.
And the allegiance that someone holds to one over the other without considering weighing the options and going case by case.
Yeah.
Voting for an R because there's an R next to the name.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or a D or whatever.
Yeah.
So you think partisanship is the reason that members of our church are not like running on that campaign of Christianity and faith and all those things?
Yeah. So I think partisan is a horrible disease. I think that every partisan election in America, ever since the two political parties took over, has been a sham and just like in shambles, and that we're we're headed down a slippery slope and things are falling apart all around us, and we're scratching our heads trying to figure out why, instead of just realizing what the answer is. And it's this, like, having a two-party system, and this kind of goes into like the Federalist Papers and things that like George Washington said and what the entire founding was, is anathema to liberty. It's like it's a disease, it's a nemesis to any free country, to any free people. So I don't know if you want, do you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, let me see if I can pull this up. Okay, so the idea of like when the Constitution was created, like the reasons for why it was made. If you read the notes on the Constitutional Convention and you read like the writings of the founding fathers, things like George Washington's farewell address, specifically Federalist Number 10, Federalist Number 47, but there's more. They say things like this. So among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union from the Constitution, none deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of faction and party.
Yep.
So from the beginning, this was firmly in their sights. And we've somehow, I don't know how, we've forgotten everything they said about it.
It's because we don't know half the words they use in the Federalist Papers, let alone have we read them.
Yeah, it does seem like that to a little bit. So there's another quote. It says, the instability, injustice, and confusion introduced into the public councils by political parties have in truth been the mortal diseases under which popular governments everywhere have perished.
Yeah.
And here's another quote. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one or a few or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elected, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny.
So that right there is the call out on bureaucracies, which if people don't know, it's just executive department agencies. So it's things like the FBI, except it's under the president. It's things like OSHA and similar. I think the EPA is considered one as well. A lot of these three-letter, typically, organizations, and they're technically under the president. They are neither legislative nor judicial. They are executive, but they are yet, like OSHA, making laws with OSHA code. And then when you don't follow OSHA law, they're enforcing it, the executive, and they're issuing fines as a penalty for you breaking those types of codes. And in some cases, they literally have executive-based courts that function like a judiciary. So you have a bureaucratic system that has all three branches of the government rolled into one. And why does it have that? Because Congress got lazy and said, well, I think it was the Chevron Act, we're going to make it to where whenever these bureaucracies pass a code, it automatically is enforceable by law via our signature on this act. So it was just an auto pen, but was a one and for all. You just sign this bill, it's passed, Chevron Act, now all bureaucratic agencies are able to just automatically get the weight of law in their code. Now that was overturned recently, thankfully, which was incredible. So it basically put a halt on these bureaucracies from being able to perform that legislative function of making law. But you just described perfectly through the Federalist Papers a bureaucracy that has all three of those. And what are they telling us right now? Oh, they're defunding all these groups like USAID that are giving money to people that need money and all these different things. But what's actually happening is it's experts, many. That's what the key word I heard from you're saying. You said if one, few, or many people have all three of those powers, that is tyranny and a disease to our nation. But that's exactly what happens is these many experts, like Anthony Fauci, part of the NIH when COVID went down, part of many that decide what they think is best for America. And guess what? They're not elected, so you can't vote them in or out. And the president is not even able to, apparently. They're trying to figure out if that's actually the case through a court hearing that's going on pretty soon here. And if that's the case, you literally have no recourse, no course of action to change the state of our country and the policies that are being implemented. Because no matter who you vote for as president, they're installed permanently if this isn't overturned.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good observation. I think that like looking at it from the founders' perspective, so when they designed the Constitution, they were going to have 3 different branches.
Yeah.
And so if you read through the notes on the convention, they obsessed over how they could maintain independence between each of these branches. So they would have these conversations and these debates, and they would say things like, how can we make sure that the executive will never make a decision based on the solicitation of the legislative branch? What if the legislative branch says, hey, we want you to pass this, and they were to coordinate their activities? We cannot permit that to happen. So we're going to institute checks and balances because that would be the worst possible thing. And so this idea of so if the executive, legislative, and judiciary was held in the hands of many, or if it was held in the hands of few, that would be tyranny. And so political parties come like 100 years later. So the modern day political parties that we have now, maybe you could trace it back to 1960. And that's when it becomes like really what it is. It existed before that. It existed from like in the 1800s and whatnot, but not in the same form. And so these two centuries old organizations have grown and they've evolved over time. And their goal is to get the executive power, to get the highest office of the executive power with one of their candidates, to get 50%, 51% of the Senate and 51% of the Congress. That's their goal, right? So it's a little bit untethered even from values or from like their platform or from their objectives that they're trying to accomplish, because anything can only be accomplished once you have power. And this is the problem, is that they're all meeting behind closed doors. And we know this. Like, we know that, was Biden the president? No, he was a part of a group that we never saw.
Yeah.
That where they met in secret, they strategized, they plotted. They said, now that we have the executive and now that we have 51 in the Senate, we can push through whatever we want.
Careful with the table too.
Yeah,
it's shaking the microphones.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. The crazy thing is I'll mention something about the Biden administration, where sometimes I say Joe Biden did A, B, or C, and some people will correct me and they'll say Joe Biden didn't do any of that. If you ask Joe Biden
didn't tie his shoes in the 4 years he was president.
Like there was,
he probably had a little tool, one of those.
Is it Senator Mike?
Probably why he fell upstairs.
Is it Senator Mike Johnson that's the Speaker of the House right now?
Yeah.
He was talking about how he did not get to see Joe Biden for, I think it was a year.
That's wild.
And so
that's wonderful.
So he had requested to see him, and it took a year before he could actually see Joe Biden. When he met with him, he was like, "Sir, Mr. President, why did you not veto this bill? There were some really big problems with this." Da 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 da. And he's like, "No, we didn't have that in there." He's like, "But Mr. President, you signed it." He's like, "No, I didn't agree to sign that." Da, da, da. And there was all this confusion, and it was almost like, is this just the dementia happening? Well, it turns out we find out about the auto pen. And all these pardons and bills that were signed that he literally did not sign.
He didn't even know about
3/4
of them.
Yes. It's crazy.
That's so insane that's happening in my freaking country.
So tell me right now that Trump is a king. Tell me right now that Trump is a king, and you are failing to acknowledge the bias that you have, kind of like you're talking about partisanship. When you literally had for 4 years an administration where you didn't know who was the king. Someone was king.
Yeah.
Many were king, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Well, but you don't know who it was.
I feel like part of the problem is, it's kind of like you said, like when we vote and we do it just based on the letter next to their name. If any politician's like on a news show or like knowing anything about a politician, the most important thing that's going to tell you everything that you need to know about the candidate is what party they're part of. So there's no like independent legislator who's like an actual lawmaker or proficient in law or like proficient in policy. All these things are conducted within a party, and that's fatal to like what a true government is. And so, but that's true for the Republicans and it's true for the Democrats. So we're kind of under the illusion that like our political activism is like changing things at the top, when it's absolutely not. There's a select group of individuals, people like Newt Gingrich or Dick Cheney or these strategists, like even people behind Trump, and they're choosing what's said, they're choosing the messaging, and they're dictating everything that happens. Now, the problem with that is that there's a conflation between true principles and good things and between a mechanism of power. And so like we look at the conservative movement, we look at the Republican Party, and if they're anti-abortion, we need that. If they're fiscally conservative, we need that. If they're pro-religious freedom, like we need those things. And so it's difficult to look at the party and then distinguish which parts of it are good and which parts of it aren't. And so the problem for that in my mind is that as free Americans and as like thinking people, the idea that anti-abortion can only exist within the Republican Party. It can only be championed by Mike Johnson and by Donald Trump. That's ludicrous.
Yeah, no,
It
absolutely.
doesn't have to exist in the framework of a party. So we could reclaim that and we could redeem that. There was actually an episode I saw before, and Aiden had actually said about the idea of a third party. That like maybe like what the solution could be would be something like a third party, right? And so if we were to take all these true principles from the Republican Party that we agree with, you could have them. It's not like the property of the Republican Party.
No, for sure.
Right.
And I think there's people in the parties that they're Republican or Democrat, and they don't perfectly align with that party's ideology, because that's what's going to happen. If you have a group of people and you have a set belief system, you're going to have people that are outliers that don't align with. And I guarantee you, majority of people don't 100% align with those party beliefs.
Yeah,
that's what we've been noticing as we've been talking to people who lean who lean very left. We realize that we're all kind of the same.
Yeah,
there's very few extremists, but
we've had socialists on the show that were pro-gun, or at least pro-gun rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that baffled me, which is sad because, at the end of the day, we're all kind of the same. We all want a better America.
Well, and I should clarify, too, he identified as a democratic socialist, just to be fair. But
right, that's just step one of 3 to become socialist. I see what you mean, People are not as radical as we make them out to be. Yeah. Social media and the actual media, CNN and Fox and all this other bullcrap media, has painted people to look like these terrible, awful psychopaths.
We call it caricatures.
Yeah.
They're just stereotypes of people, not people themselves. It's a straw man issue.
And those people exist. It's just like us as conservatives, when we get called racist, of course we're not racist. Of course we're not.
Yeah.
There are racists in the world. There's a very small percentage of them, but we get looped in with all of them because they were wearing a MAGA hat or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing with these radicals. Sure, there was a teacher mocking Charlie Kirk's death. Yeah, that actually happened, and she's a moron. But that's not all of them.
Right.
That's not most of them. We need to realize that we're all kind of the same and to chill out a bit. So, we share lots of beliefs that, like you're saying, are not owned by parties.
I think that's true, but it's also impossible because the parties are not from the ground up. Like, as much as we want to think that we could have like a movement where people in Los Angeles could get together and eventually change the Democratic platform. That'll never happen. You just can't, because it's top down.
Right. The money is all from the top, and they're the influence. I mean, did you hear about that? People were going to the DNC. There's that lady. She's an Asian lady that she was high up. She was one of the campaign advisors for Kamala Harris's campaign. They fired her because she was challenging their approach.
Yeah.
And so she was coming out and saying, like, listen, a lot of people don't know this, but if you went to the DNC and you looked in the audience, all of those people had paid millions of dollars for the tickets to get in there. That's how they're funding a lot of this campaign work, is through the tickets to the DNC, to see Kamala Harris picked as the primary nominee for the Democratic Party. Yeah. Mind you, not by election. There was no primary election. One of the most undemocratic elections that we have had.
But if it's a political party, does it need to be a democratic election? I think that we want it to be, but the truth is they're private organizations. That's the problem. They're not bound to like elective representative government.
But that was the first time that I'm aware of that we have not had a primary election for a candidate for office.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. Like, if we complain about it, it doesn't really matter. And they knew that.
Yes, for sure.
There's the appearance of like they want people to think that they're making a choice or that it's like up in the air. It's not. Can we say that it shouldn't be that way? You can't, because they make their own rules. How could the government itself tell a private political party what it should and what it shouldn't do? And it's monstrous. So we're at a point where things have developed exactly like the founding fathers said.
Yeah.
They said it was a disease. George Washington said the alternate domination of one faction over the other, one party over the other, will lead to riot, insurrection, foreign influence. Exactly. Read the news. It's like in 3 years, I watched that happen, and it was like, so there was riots in the streets, the George Floyd riots, and then there was the January 6th insurrection, and I was like, are we just acting out of script? Like, did someone plan this?
Well, no, it's not.
Like, first we'll have riots, then we'll have an insurrection, then we're going to have a Russian dossier about foreign influence. And it's like, are you just going down the list? This is insane. Could he have been that right?
Well, a Russian dossier that was falsified, by the way. Yeah. All that information was corrupt.
But, I mean, foreign influence is still...
The foreign influence is real. They were just lying about who was influenced.
Yeah.
But, so that the thing is, well, part of it is you're right. They are following a script, and that's because history repeats itself.
Yeah.
It's to the T, and it's because it follows. First you welcome something. You're okay and comfortable with the idea of communism, and then you start welcoming it. So it's like you condoned it, you welcome it, and then you champion for it, and then you suppress the things that are outside of that. It's like there's a progression, and it goes down the list.
Well, so this idea of like there being like two dominant political parties that are just so behemoth, so leviathan.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we could do to take them out. So I was in a class. It was a legislative government class. They were talking about the idea of political parties, and they were like, okay, so there's a Republican Party, there's a Democratic Party, and then he taught us a third party is a vote for the opposition, no matter which party you are. I remember he said that, and I was like, is that really true? Like, we believe, like, there's this idea of freedom, political activism. Like, what if I wanted to start a political party? and he was so scornful of that idea. So on the test, the answer to the question, what is a third political party? The correct answer is a vote for the opposition. And I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true either.
No, it's
yeah. And
that's it's crazy. It's like, do I choose the Sith or the Jedi?
Exactly.
Well, if I choose the opposite one of the one I want, that's a third one.
But here's the problem.
Work.
These are young students. And so I remember, like, everyone's in the class, we're listening. Political activism, like, you can be a part of a political party. A political party's done this, political party's done that. And then we're told, and you are a fool if you think that you could do anything against the two.
Okay, well,
the two
here's
major
the thing.
parties.
Practically speaking, and I want to challenge you on this. I think, practically speaking, it's unlikely that we will ever get a party going that doesn't have those same ills that the Republican and Democrat parties have. And so replaces them in that sense and is actually effective enough, unlike the independent party, where it's just this sinkhole for people that want to vote for something they think makes their vote mean something. Like, oh, I voted for someone that I agree with their principles. No, you voted and affected the two actual winning candidates, either negatively or positively. That's all you did. You threw away your vote.
Right.
I'm fine. I think you have a right to be able to vote for who you want to vote for. I mean, you can write someone in. You can write in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but ultimately, functionally, you threw your vote away.
Right. So I think the reason why this happens is because of what we teach kids. So the textbook for that class was a 13th edition. They updated it every year. They were putting the most recent political data in it from political science.
Oh, wow.
And so the textbook answer, the right answer on the quiz, what's a third political party? It's a vote for the opposition. So I remember I had raised my hand and I said, really, there's no set of conditions that you could foresee where a third political party could gain some traction or have some level of success. And he was so scornful. It was this elitist, you fool. Like, the statistics show, we've seen time and time again. And if you think that you could do that, you're a fool.
Can I tell you?
Well, hold on. Yeah. So I remember watching the entire class. And so our interest level, we were all watching. We're like, oh, this is interesting. You could tell people were engaged. And he said that, and every head went down. They were like, okay, so what's our political future going to look like? We have the Constitution. We're learning about the legislative branch. What's our political activism going to look like? How are we going to shape the world? And then they were told, there's no hope. There's no hope. So, and I don't think that's true. I think there could be a perfect storm of conditions. I think that there could be a third political party active on a local scale, probably not a national level. And if the question then becomes, is the answer to the foibles of two major political parties a third political party? Maybe not, but it damn well could be. And if you're going to tell me that I can't even try, you're teaching this to kids? Like, this is insane. And I remember I rejected it.
Yeah.
And so there was something else that we were taught in that class as well. And it was, so the final project of the entire class that was announced weeks beforehand was that we were going to pretend like we were senators and that we were in a race against another person in the class. So it was like we were campaigning against each other. And so they presented all this information. They said, you smear your opponent. He showed us videos of smear campaigns, of the most outlandish, wild smear campaigns that have smear ads that have ever been produced. And he said, you got to make one of these. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And so this idea of okay, so if you take political science data and you look at highly contentious campaigns, oftentimes there's a correlation between smearing a candidate, smearing your opposition, saying lies, saying things that just are patently not true. You have to be on the attack. You can't be conciliatory. You can't say good things about the candidate. You have to make the public think this person is the worst, and that's just how it is.
Fear mongering.
We've seen it over decades.
Yeah.
And he assigned us to do that. He assigned the students of like, or you want to have a
That's
future
very
in
unethical.
politics? You're studying political science? I mean, it's practical, but I thought it was unethical.
Yeah.
And so in my partnership, I remember the person was obviously a little bit liberal, and we had a project, and he had proposed an idea of like a constitutional amendment to expand the Supreme Court. And our group was mostly conservative, and they shot him down. They're like, no. But like, I was like, this is a thoughtful person, right? And so I tried to like bring like some sense of realism into what our attack ads were supposed to be. So we were supposed to give speeches, and I gave a speech, and I was like, Senator Noah is a good man. And all the other speeches were just like, this person commits adultery, like blah, 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 like all these horrible things. And I was like, you are not, like, I'm not going to participate in this. And I remember going through that. I remember the attention, the hope of the class falling.
Yeah.
I remember the scorn of the professor, and it's not to be laid at his feet. It was in the textbook. We've learned through sad experience that the powers that are contained within these political parties are so behemoth, are so leviathan, that we can't make any approach to it. But if we think that, we're wrong, because there are things that we can do. We have freedom. We have liberty. Could we lose? Yeah, you might lose. You should be prepared for that, but also be prepared to win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not? Like, there could be a perfect storm. There could be the right set of conditions.
Yeah. I want to comment on something. I cannot take credit for this, but Glenn Beck has been talking about this, and this blew my mind. So I'm going to propose this as an opportunity for a third party to come up. I don't think it would be on good terms, though.
Let's do it.
So
this is the first meeting. No, I'm just kidding.
he was talking about how right now the Democrat Party is at risk of dying. And he said the reason that is because there's these things going on. It's not as happy as you think.
Oh, okay.
That's what I said. There's a risk to this. There's a problem. What he was saying was that their base is moving more and more left. It's moving more and more radical. And they're unhappy with the performance and the output that they have seen in their political candidates. Have we not talked to several individuals just on this show or interviewing people, potentially guests for this show, where they've been saying, yeah, I think Obama didn't do enough. Yeah, I think Joe Biden didn't do
Obama
enough.
didn't deport enough?
You're going to hear it.
Enough?
You're going to hear it.
He wasn't radical enough.
You're going to hear
enough.
Zoran Mamdani didn't do enough.
He didn't make us Venezuela.
When you get that on a wide scale basis, what you have is down with Democrats and up with the communists. That's what we will see.
Yeah.
And I hope that never happens. And I tell you, the day that happens, our political atmosphere just drastically changed. Because what happens is you're going to get a radical, communist, socialist, whoever. You're going to get them in power. They're going to be gusto. It's going to be just like Mussolini. It's going to be just like Hitler, where they rise up to power and they say, I will accomplish A, B, C, D. And the people will elect them. And they'll get into power. And they will level the playing field. They will level all of the checks and balances. And they will say, I am king, I am dictator, I am the fascist, and I will control all these things that go on. That's what fascism is.
I saw an interview with Tucker Carlson and Sean Ryan. I don't know if you know who that is. Tucker Carlson obviously is the news pundit, but Sean Ryan was like in the military and stuff.
I think I know him.
He has a pretty cool podcast, and he has like military operatives on. They talk about when they killed Osama bin Laden and stuff, and like his head hitting the stairs as they went down. He's pretty brutal. And so Tucker had said, like, we're moving toward either revolution or civil war.
Yep.
And then Sean Ryan had said, hold on, like, what do you think happens when the country with the most guns in the entire world gets encroached on by tyranny? And Tucker was like, oh, geez, like, he's like, and like, what do you think so like in your scenario that you're saying, they try to do that. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, absolutely. I've said this before. I said, if they try to institute socialism and communism here, they're going to have a bunch of right-wing rednecks. They're going to say, heck no. And they are going to be armed.
Yeah. But I mean, the problem is that is a two-edged sword.
Oh, for sure. That's horrible.
We look at Trump and we look at a lot of the things that he's doing. I mean, the idea of like people from Iran coming over the border, the Mexican border, and now being present in America, obviously that's a huge fear. And so the idea of like doing deportations, anything that's done through the force of the government, anything that's done with a gun and with like by taking someone's arm and like shoving them behind their back, shoving them into a car. Anything that's done through like any form of that coercion and power is like the worst possible solution to anything. And so from our perspective, which is obviously more conservative, we say if they did this, we would rise up. And then I think people on the left are seeing it happen to them. They're seeing it happen to Mexicans who are not technically American citizens, but they don't view it that way. We try to say they're not. They don't view it that way.
Well, and they're making claims, and I don't know how often this is true, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen, but they're making claims that there have been U.S. citizens that are Latino that have been arrested and have been deported and have been mistreated and have been all these different things, and found out later that they were citizens. And I think part of the reason why people are panicking is because right now we don't have records. We don't have the ability of, what is it, foresight? There's no way for us to have for sure proof. So everyone we talk to, they're like, well, what do you think this is happening? I'm like, well, where's your proof? And they're like, well, we don't have proof, but we have these things that we think are suggesting that these things are happening. And I'm always like, if that's happening, I detest that. I think that's wrong. Again, I'm against police brutality. I think that people are exaggerating how big of a problem that is and how frequently that happens, but there are absolutely bad cops out there. There's bad firefighters, there's bad doctors.
So there was a talk by Stephen Miller at the Charlie Kirk Memorial.
I saw it.
In everything that he said, he was rallying troops for war. He said, we are Athens. We are Greece. We are Rome. We built civilization over the millennia, and our enemies are nothing. You are no one, and you have no idea of the army that you have awoken.
I know, but that
type of language, though, like think about it, like that type of language, I think it kind of goes into what Levente said on your podcast, where he said, we're watching the left go so far. We're watching them do all these extreme things. They're not being checked. Transgenderism. They want to teach it to our kids. Our kids have the possibility of going into a public school and having a counselor explain to them, you need to cut off your breasts. Like, it's insane. And so if it goes too far, the force that would be required to quell that would be terrible. And it would lead to something. And they will paint
it as bad. And sometimes it can even go too far. It can go too far of an overcorrection to where it is bad and it is tyrannical. And I don't want that to happen. I detest anything like that to happen. It's wrong. And that's the thing that I'm concerned about is if these, I pray and hope that these things are not actually taking place, that we're being threatened are happening.
I feel like part of it is that we have to remove ourselves from that.
What does that mean?
So as I've approached journalism, I feel like I read a news article or I read something about like a political idea, and they're participating in the political process. So when Fox News publishes something or CNN publishes something,
it's biased.
They're moving the dial. They're moving the needle. They're turning things in a certain direction. It's part of politics. If we approached history, if we approached like this moment in time as if we were historians, so not like academic historians, but like through a lens of history, dispassionately, non-participative, I think that we could see it for what it is. So when I look at the right, I look at all these things that are happening, what ICE is doing and whatnot. I understand where it's coming from. And I also understand that part of it is just the desire to retain power. So there's pretexts. There are real issues that are caught up in this political system that's fundamentally adversarial. Like, think about it. So you have two political parties. They're going to be fighting over the government. They're going to use any means necessary. They have no holds barred. Like, Michelle Obama has a dick. Donald Trump got peed on by hookers in Russia, right? So these are just like the dirtiest tactics that you can imagine. And you think that they're going to limit themselves. So take that to its full fruition. What happens over time? It's a civil war. That's what happens. And I think so for a long time, like I saw the riots happened and all these people were in the streets. I actually went to Salt Lake. I was like walking along the riots and I saw everything that they were saying. They were chanting, they were cheering, and it was an army. And they were moving in a solid mass. And it wasn't clear like what their purpose was there. It was like they would say things like George Floyd, say his name. And then the next chant was F Donald Trump. And I was like, okay, so is this pro George Floyd or is this anti Donald Trump?
Yeah. And
then like they went to the Capitol building and like someone got up to speak and they were like, everyone in the back, lock arms now and create a human wall. The National Guard is on its way right now. And we are not going to let them stop us. And like everyone in the crowd, we just kind of like looked, and I was like, what the heck? And like nobody moved. We're just like, what the heck is happening? Someone took the microphone and they were like, okay, yeah, so we're not going to do that. Everything's okay. But Martin Luther King once said, and it was so disjointed where it was like, They didn't even know what they were doing.
That is a group on the brink of collapse right there. That's what I'm saying. I think the Democratic Party, I can't take credit for this because Glenn Beck said this, but I do absolutely agree that is a threat. And I think that will be a bad thing for our country. And I'm not saying this issue of, I hope we're not doing this because I'm a conservative and Donald Trump is a guy that I voted for and all these other things. Yeah. I'm not saying that out of a partisan light. I'm saying that as if we fumble this term and we fail, which people have already said that we have done that already, if we fail to demonstrate an opposition to what the Democrat status quo is, part of the reason Trump got elected was because it was, hey, we do not want what we got with last time with the Democrats. But if we fail to set ourselves apart and distinguish ourselves as different and separate from the Democrats, and we just use their same tactics and we just do their same, the same results, and we fail to accomplish anything like is notorious with the Republicans, we will struggle to ever see that hope. It'll be the other side that will lead for quite a considerable time. Because once Democrats fall, which is what Chuck Schumer is afraid of right now, that's the reason that they held on so tightly to the government shutdown this most recent time, is because the radicals of his base are saying, we will deplatform you if you don't do this for us. You will no longer we're not going to vote for you. You're going to be done. And so they're afraid that they're losing power. That's because they are. And if they lose that power, there's going to be these radicals that will come in and take their place. And they will be seen as effective and they will be seen as productive. By the way, my understanding is Hitler praised our president of the time, which was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as a man who knew how to get things done. Like, unilaterally, bypassing Congress. FDR ran as a fascist. It was only post-World War II that term became a bad word politically. Yeah. And then they had to separate themselves from fascists and say, oh, it was the right that was fascist, when that wasn't the case.
So I think part of the problem is we don't want to be violent people. We don't want to be aggressive people. We don't want to use coercion or use force.
I don't know if you can say that for a majority of people, yes.
Yeah.
But there is a growing silent majority, not so silent, a growing minority that is no longer true.
Yeah, no.
Or they're just itching to use violence.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what it is. They're looking for a justified exit.
It's not going to solve anything. I mean, people use violence against Charlie Kirk. Look what happened. Freaking 54,000 people joined Turning Point USA in the first freaking week. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do anything. You can kill whoever you want. There's going to be 10,000 more heads that grow back. It's just such a unconstitutional and chronically unintelligent way of solving things.
Well, so would you say the Revolutionary War was fought in vain?
No. Well, I want to create
Revolutionary War. That was to give us.
But I want to set something apart.
Real conflict,
I want to set something apart here. What was different about our Revolutionary War compared to any other prior revolution? We didn't start it. Yeah, we issued the breakup letter. We sent the Declaration of Independence and said, all right, King George, we're through. We're done. What happened next? The Red Army came over to our shore and declared war.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That was a genuine, we were defending ourselves. War of 1812. Yeah. They literally burned down the White House. We defended ourselves in combat. Yeah. But that's different from a lot of the other wars that we've seen recently. I want to just set that apart. That's part of the reason that this is different.
The idea of the Civil War was that there were these two sides. Things became so intractable. The point that it reached.
You're talking about the Civil War, not the Revolutionary War?
So not to put a moral judgment on it. Like looking at history, what happens when tensions rise? What happens when the division becomes so great? And if we want to be able to temper it, we want to be able to turn it aside, to turn away from conflict. But conflict breeds conflict. Evil breeds evil.
Yeah.
Smear campaigns, they breed hate.
Oh, I agree.
Hate turns into rage. Rage turns into violence.
It's like the Star Wars thing.
Yoda called it, bro.
He said fear, which I think this is so true. People don't realize this connection, but it's so true. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to suffering. And that's literally the first trilogy. Yeah. It is absolutely what is depicted.
Yeah. It's so honestly, like my solution to it, so if we look at the Goths and the Romans, which side, like, you know what I mean? Like, what type of investment do we have in like understanding that conflict? Rome was destroyed. The Goths did it, right? We look at what the Romans did and we say, they really messed up. There were all these things. There was this weakness. They collapsed from the inside, and then they were hit from the outside, and like looking at it that way and being able to say, that's why that happened. Look at our time and say the same thing. And so like looking at the Republican Party, do they have a lot of good things? Yeah, but they also have a lot of mistakes. And so what's our role in that? Are we going to participate in that? Are we limited to two choices? Do I have to be a liberal or do I have to be a conservative? Am I a Democrat or am I a Republican? Or am I a Latter-day Saint? Am I an independent? You know what I mean? Like, where's our allegiance? And I think that oftentimes our highest allegiance, our activity, our breath, our words, everything that we do, holding signs, advocating for things, goes to a political party. And what if it didn't? What if it went to a better cause? And we're told, and this is not true, we're told from outside voices that like the government of our church or the priesthood of our church, the leadership of our church, the scriptures of our church,
not literal
government.
Adequate.
It's not adequate. And we know that it is. We know that it was designed to change the world. What's going to happen when everything goes down? Like, we have so many land holdings. So if there was a disaster or if there was a political conflict, like a military conflict, the windows on the church rooms, on the classrooms in the church are like 3 inches thick. You know what I mean?
I haven't
like,
seen that.
Batten down the hatches.
I do remember that. I never really paid attention to that, but you're right.
And they're everywhere. And they have a geographical area. So like this idea of like looking forward into the future, what's going to happen? And I think that we're going to see things that we don't expect. I think it's like the idea of Elijah. So like Elijah had said, he's like, I'm the last prophet. And he was like contending against them. And then like he went up to Mount Carmel and he was like, I'm the last prophet left and they're about to kill me. And then he said that like 3 different times. And then Jehovah was like, there are 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. Like, all is not lost. And I think that right now we're not seeing eye to eye because all the media that's produced, we don't realize that other people are feeling the same way. And we don't realize the hope that's actually there. But it's actually there.
So we also lost Aiden's camera. It's overheated. So
He's that hot.
you're not going to see his pretty face for a while.
I didn't
until it
realize
cools
my
down.
camera was gone.
Yeah. It's KO'd. His pretty face was too much for the camera to handle. As our producer said, he is too hot. That is a quote.
Which producer?
It was Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
I'll
So just to clarify that, yeah. So right now, when you're saying government, you're referring to the leadership of our church. It doesn't actually function as a government, like standalone. But
that's a topic for another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never seen the windows like you're talking about. I think that's interesting.
The
I do
ones that,
know.
like, clamp. They have like the clamp.
Oh,
Yeah,
You
I've seen
can't
those.
see through them, but
Yeah.
the sun can get through.
I
You can't smash that window.
I think also from a spiritual perspective, I do think that the churches and the temples of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are going to be a refuge that are it's dedicated ground. It's protected by God.
You want to know something
And that's
interesting?
definitely, not objective, but I think that's definitely going to be a reality in the coming days.
Something that's interesting is that I started my mission in North Carolina. Well, part of it. I started in the Philippines and then COVID hit. So I was sent home, went to North Carolina. We had a tornado warning one day. And they told us to get to the nearest meeting house if possible.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Oh, yeah, I've been told that
They
before,
build
too.
them to
Earthquakes and
withstand.
stuff. Yeah.
Which I'm sure that they do that in mind of areas are going to get hit with hurricanes, with tornadoes, with earthquakes, with fires, with floods, with mudslides, with tsunamis.
Yep.
And our church is investing so much in the food and the preservation of peoples, both impoverished. I mean, people, if you knew how much the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints gives to poor people on a daily basis, you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked. It's one of the most active organizations in giving and charitable work. If you see giving machines, by the way, in your area, absolutely do donate to that. It's a way for you to give to people that are in need.
100% of what you donate to the giving machine specifically goes straight to what you're buying.
Yeah, if you drop $150 in that giving machine, they will ship a goat to a family in Africa so they have milk. And
$150
food.
of the $150 will be to that.
Yeah.
Lots of these organizations have these charity things, and it's like for tax write-offs, and they keep 20 to 70% of it. Like the church has plenty of money.
Yeah.
That's not to flex. We do not need your money. Tithing and fast offering is different, of course.
Yeah.
But like the giving machine, just thought I'd say that. I keep looking at the camera, but it's not there. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. So, but that's something that is a fascinating aspect that people don't appreciate about our church. So, and people get nervous when we talk about this. It's part of the Charlie Kirk, Israel, conspiracy theories, all this stuff where people are like, Erica Kirk murdered her husband and is now pregnant with another man's kid.
That's wild.
And
With
like
J.D. Vance's kid.
Yeah. Well, not
Their
just,
child.
there's other people too that they've like random people and they've got pictures. Well, they're AI generated.
Yeah.
Like there's these
So
crazy
ridiculous.
wacko theories that people are putting out there. What I'm getting at is that when you talk about the church having all this land, when you talk about the church having fortified buildings, which that's the reason, it's to protect members and non-members from natural disasters. I mean, I'm sure other disasters too, but you have these types of situations. They're buying up all this land. They're one of the direct competitors against Bill Gates. Yeah. Bill Gates is buying up farmland. Did you guys know about that? And he's decommissioning it and using it for other things.
What an idiot.
But our church is outbidding him and preserving those farmlands. They buy this farmland and they'll grow crops and basically sell them at cost. Like they don't even pay for the labor. It's all volunteer work a lot of times, I think, too. But like basically people are volunteering to harvest this crop and they're at cost just giving out these dirt cheap apples and other products and processing them into applesauce and other goods. And then people that are in need and are hungry and can't afford food are getting fed. Like that's what social programs should be, is the churches.
Have you thought about doing an episode just on the church? Because there's so much to go into. Like
There's a lot to go into, and that's
church is
not
so
a bad
complicated.
suggestion at all. So
Yeah. We've talked extensively about it, but yeah.
we have. I'm pretty sure the audience knows that we're Christian and what denomination we.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that'd
For
be
sure.
sick though.
So, but that's some of the fascinating stuff about this. And I'm trying to remember why we got onto this topic, but basically, yes, things are going to get kind of crazy and we're going to need to band together. I think Christians, all of our faiths, we're going to need to get band together because we agree on one thing, and that is Christ. So let's stand up for what we believe in and work together instead of being antagonistic to each other, because that's making the enemy stronger by us fighting and infighting.
Yeah.
But
A civil
George
war
Washington
within a
say?
civil war. What would George Washington
What would George
say?
Washington say?
About what?
About disunity. He'd be like, gentlemen,
Yeah.
this is unbecoming of the American nation.
yeah.
We need to unify.
Glenn Beck.
In
kinda-
January,
he was here.
on January 5th, you'll get to ask George
Yeah, you get to
Washington.
ask
Have you heard about
G-Dub.
that?
Yeah, that's wild.
George
Shout
AI.
out.
I saw that they had snippets of the interview. We watched it on our last episode.
It's kind of funny.
It's awesome.
What
Did
if
you
we
hear
asked
CNN
him?
freak out about the interview? They
Yeah,
were
what did
like,
freak out about.
well, they said that Glenn Beck has made a George Washington AI, and it sounds exactly like Glenn Beck because he's saying the same things.
That's funny.
So they're accusing Glenn Beck of doctoring the content essentially and making an AI that just regurgitates his opinions. And he's like,
He took it from George.
the
in first place.
reason why I sound like George Washington and he sounds like me is because I've gotten the material from him. They wrote all this content and I've read it and I've purchased it. And now I have it in my private library that I'm opening up to the public next year. That's the reason I sound like George Washington and why he sounds like me. It's because I am a student of him. He is my mentor. Like, that's the reason why. But CNN can't admit, he says, they can't admit that I'm right. Because that would mean they have to admit that they're wrong this whole time. If George Washington, the founding fathers, stated that these things that we're dealing with in our current society is destroying us bit by bit. If they were to admit that, they'd have to admit that their position is the weak position. Yeah. So yeah, people are going to accuse Glenn Beck of that, but I'm telling you right now, goated. Go get
So sick.
George AI and ask him questions and see what George Washington would say in those scenarios. I love that you asked that question.
think he
I
can-
honestly don't know what he would say. But yes, something to that effect of this is unbecoming. The fact that, and this isn't just about parties. You're talking,
He'd probably say, I told you 200 years ago.
yeah.
Exactly this would happen.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well,
What are you doing?
but like you mentioned with the parties, they were talking about factions. That was their term they used for basically just a group of people that
use
wanted to wield
factions
power.
and they use parties. It's like, yeah.
But that didn't necessarily mean a political party. But a faction is largely talking about interest groups. So it is PACs. It is all these different entities, and they're not bad in and of themselves, but what's bad is when they get centralized. And that is happening, unfortunately.
I'd have to look into it more. I wish I was an expert on all the Federalist Papers, but
That's fascinating. Yeah. Everyone should read them. If you don't know, the Federalist Papers, so Publius, which was a pen name for 3 of the different founding fathers, it was mainly James Madison, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit of Thomas Jefferson, I think a little bit of Hamilton. They wrote in tandem the Federalist Papers, which was the argument that ushered in the federal government. Before this, we had the Article of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation, it was basically just, we had 13 states, they were called colonies, and they basically just all got the same amount of power and nothing really got done. There was no unifying group. Everyone had to agree on everything unilaterally, so if everyone had to vote on it, and if it wasn't, everyone was in on it, then it wasn't happening. So if you had one dissenter, nothing got done, and it was really screwing over the country. But basically, I'm getting a warning on time here, but basically, I lost my train of thought. Basically, the Articles of Confederation were ineffective, and then these 3 were saying that the federal government needed to be formed, and people were worried about it becoming tyrannical, which it basically has.
Dun, dun.
But the Federalist Papers argue why we needed a federal government and how we could make it in such a way that it didn't overrule the states. Okay? And then there was the Anti-Federalist Papers, which are also fascinating because it talks about the concerns. It's the opposite side. They were worried about, if you make a federal government, we're going to lose our country. So, by the way, the reason we've lost our country is because we, the people, have refused to take action and to say enough is enough. We do not tolerate these violations of the Constitution, and we have forgotten the Constitution. We've allowed a government school system to teach us what we should and shouldn't do. And because it's a government school system, well, convenient that they leave out the parts that disadvantage the government. And they don't incentivize you learning about those things. And I know it differs from school to school. I'm just generalizing here. But we need to become a people that is deeply invested in our founding documents. Read the Federalist Papers, read the Anti-Federalist Papers, read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Understand where your rights actually come from. You don't have a right to health care because God doesn't have a right to health care that he has issued to us. If you're in the wilderness, you don't have this. Nature does not owe you a right to have medical care. That doesn't exist. It doesn't work. But you do have a right to defend yourself, hence the right to bear arms. You do have a right to speak your mind, hence the First Amendment. You do have a right to privacy. You do have a right to be innocent until proven guilty. Like these are human rights issued by God, our Creator. And we better start standing up for them because America, we're losing them. So become an expert in our history, or our history
will become an expert on us.
Will school you.
I like that.
It will school you. And then what can you do when you lose your country? You can't. Your voice doesn't sound very loud crying from the gulag. What are you going to do at that point?
Yep.
Do something before you walk through the gate of the gulag.
Unlike actual physical death, there is no hope after you lose the country until the second coming of Christ. So,
well, I think that was a very interesting conversation.
I like that.
We hit all the different things, talked about things I didn't expect. That started off with just being about religious freedom and the Constitution. And look where it took us.
That was good.
Yeah,
I like
That was
it.
good.
we appreciate you being on the channel, the show, something, whatever this is, podcast.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
And we look forward to having future conversation with you, David.
Cool.
Thanks for watching, guys, and leave a comment down below what you thought, and hit a like button on here. A like button. There's multiple. Careful. Some of them are different from others.
If it's a thumbs down one, you don't hit that one.
Yeah.
This is me making
Whatever platform you're on, whatever the like button looks like, just
this is me making the most of my fumble. So, okay, have a good night.